My name is Henry Thielman. I oversee product development at EQ3. Now more than ever, we have to think about ways of reducing our carbon footprint, and thoughtful products that are inherently non-disposable in function nor design is one of the ways that we contribute to reducing waste. If you haven't seen us in person yet, you can find our flagship store on 7th and 17th in Chelsea. Stay safe.
Hey everyone, welcome back to CLOSEUP. I'm Bill Hanley, the editor-in-chief of Dwell magazine, and I'm very excited to be hosting this afternoon's series of North American studio sessions. We'll be talking with designers from all over the continent, but first I want to thank ICFF and Wanted Design for hosting this and EQ3 for supporting. For the first session, we have a great group of studios. With me at Industry City in Brooklyn, we have Jay Mcdonald playing for the home team. His studio is here in Red Hook. From the Bronx, we have Michael Whiston and Norville Hermanovsky, Norville, from Silver Hill Atelier in the Bronx. And from Philadelphia, we have Kimberly Hall and Justin Hardison from Notena. Did I say that correctly?
You did, yeah.
And then joining us remotely from Western Canada, we have Kirk van Ludwig from Autonomous Furniture. Kirk, where exactly in Western Canada are you?
Island, so it's just a quick ferry ride from Vancouver.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us. It's great to have everybody here. It's so cool to be talking to designers again. It's been a weird year for everyone, so again, I'm glad everyone could join us. So the format is going to be a series of studio visit videos introducing all of the designers, their processes, their practices, where and how they work. And then we'll be doing a Q&A here in the studio and with Kirk remotely to go in a little bit more in depth into what they're working on, their process, and what they have coming up. So we're going to kick it off with you, Kirk, going into your studio in Canada.
Hi folks, welcome to Autonomous Furniture. Come on in. I'm Kirk van Ludwig and this is Autonomous Furniture. Welcome to our studio here in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. I'm a Canadian furniture designer, mainly focused on mixed materials and with a sort of foot in modernism. I spent a lot of times in the coastal mountains and in the forests. I draw a lot of my designs from forms that I see in those areas. Another thing that you'll notice as we give you the tour of our studio is that I believe it's really important to still work in analog. What does that mean? Well, you'll see that we build a lot of our furniture by hand. We try and limit the amount of machinery that we use. And also in the beginning stages, both in design and engineering, I prefer to still draw by pencil and sort of limit our use of computers. And part of the reason why we do that is that I think it ends up giving our pieces maybe a sense of soul. Our mantra is evoke drama. A lot of times we're delivering furniture into very modern homes, a lot of white walls and glass windows. And so the homeowners are looking for a way to maybe bring some warmth into the environment. And that's where our furniture comes in. We're most excited about a return to New York. We displayed last year, being 2019, at Wanted Design. So the opportunity to participate at CLOSEUP is right in our hearts. So we're going to tour you around the studio a little bit and show you some of our latest pieces. The first one being the Credenza Unit. Then we'll roll over to the Claire end tables. In fact, we released the original Claire end table at Wanted Design New York last year. Now we have our new edition using our 100% recycled paper composite material, as well as our Tilikum black bench using the same material. And then end off with a table called the Jack table, and that's one that we designed right in the heat of the pandemic. What we are known for is the ability to tailor each of our pieces. So people understand what our design philosophy and the pieces that we build, but let's say they want things a little bit longer or a little bit wider. Because we do all of our work in-house, we have the ability to make these adjustments. A good example of that is our Credenza Unit that we just launched. It's made from single-piece black walnut. Now, remember I mentioned about us working in analog. I think this is a really good example of that. The entire carcass of the Credenza Unit is actually made from single-piece black walnut. So you'll be able to see that the pieces waterfall and make their way all the way around. The Credenza sits on a toe kick, which is actually 3/8 hot rolled steel, sort of giving it a bit of an industrial feel to it. And then we pay homage to craftsman roots by the hinge points being exposed end grain. It really represents some of our I think, some of our best work and a good example of the autonomous spirit. So this is our Claire end table. Actually originally launched in 2019 at Wanted Design in New York. This particular Claire end table is shown in a torched oak with silver onyx finish. The original design for this table came because I have a beautiful Eames lounge chair at home, but I also have two little girls, a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, who love to draw on things and play in our living room. So I really wanted a table that was super lightweight and easy to move around the room. I wanted a place to put my coffee and an iPad. The Claire end table uses 1-inch thick acrylic to give it a little bit of airiness and luxe feel. The edge detail of acrylic will pick up whatever's behind it. So if there's trees, if there's water, anything like that, you can actually see it in the edge detail. Whatever we use for the top of the Claire end table, let's say a walnut or shown in torched oak or a white oak, we always match the stretcher bar the same way. Now you'll notice that on the Claire end table, there's absolutely no visible fasteners, which was a bit of a design goal that I had in it. Next up is our latest launch, the Claire Black. Now what's different about this? Well, we have a lot of customers that acrylic doesn't work, but they are after a more matte black and dramatic feel. So something that I've been playing around with for quite some time is recycled paper material that we use in some of our furniture. And it's the perfect fit for the Claire Black, in my opinion. Now, our Tillicum bench has always been one of our best sellers, typically in acrylic. I'm happy to show you at close-up our new Tillicum Black using the same recycled paper material as we showed over with the Claire end table. The Tillicum Black bench uses a single 4-inch thick piece of Douglas fir that we source right here on Vancouver Island from a private woodlot. We put a slight white tint into the oil to give it, I guess, sort of a Scandinavian look, but we want to maintain what the Douglas fir looks like when we first cut into it. The bench becomes a dramatic piece that's often used in an entranceway or sometimes at the end of the bed, those kinds of things. You'll notice on the Tillicum Black that we incorporate a little bit of Japanese styling with the joinery and how the stretcher bar comes through. All of our furniture at Autonomous uses all natural hard wax oil finishes. The reason why we do that is we want the wood to feel and look like wood. Our new Tillicum Black, it's a fantastically sturdy bench that gives a real sense of gravity to any space. This brings us to our final piece, our new entry, our Jack dining room table. And clearly designed to be a family table. We designed the Jack table right in the heat of the pandemic. And the idea was to try and create a table that we could build for somewhat at low cost so that we could have an affordable offering. And so some of the things that were important to us is that the jack table's made from single piece 12-foot long ash boards. And the reason that I wanted to do that was we were able to utilize the entire board for both the tabletop and the legs. Shown here is our blackened or torched ash with a hard wax oil finish. Now you'll notice that the legs on this table are transposed. And the reason why I did that, for two reasons. One is wanted to give it torsional rigidity, so it's a very sturdy table, but also to maximize the amount of chairs that you get in between each leg. So it sort of does two things. Now I wanted to introduce my partner and also these girls' mom and co-founder of Autonomous Furniture, Jody Wynn.
Hi. When Kirk came up with the design for the jack table, we really wanted to make sure that it embodied the autonomous spirit. While the goal was to keep it at a reasonable price point, we wanted to ensure that it had a contemporary feel, that it was made from solid natural materials, so it's solid wood that's durable, meant to be well used, colored on, many family meals, and celebrated really.
And lasting a lifetime, right?
Yeah, and the goal with all of our autonomous pieces really is to create quality pieces that you have in your home that are tactile, that you want to touch, that become your favorites, and really last generations.
And so with that, we're going to close off. We want to thank all of you for coming down to the Autonomous Furniture Studio. And I guess from our family to yours, everybody keep well. And then we'll close out, and I guess we're going to questions and answers. Bye, everybody. Everybody wave.
Thanks for coming.
Wave. Goodbye.
We'll wave back, Kirk. Thanks so much. It was really cool to see the studio and get a sense of the collection. That table is not only gorgeous, but it's really timely, the way that all of our kitchen tables are doing kind of double and triple duty as workspaces and school desks and dinner tables. So up next, we have Michael and Norville from Silver Hill Studios in the Bronx. I guess we'll take a look.
Hi, I'm Norville Hermanovsky.
Hi, I'm Michael Whiston.
This is our Silver Hill Atelier's workshop in Sobro, South Bronx. This is not it right here, but we are... Welcome to Silver Hill Atelier. We started out as a mural painting company, and here you can see some of our classical pieces done in oil paint, which is not so popular anymore, but we're still doing them. I like to know that my team can do this kind of stuff. This is Frederick, and this is Alfredo, and Alfredo's mixing colors for this mural here, and Frederick is getting the gesso on there ready. It's for our new projects. Actually, this is in Boston, right?
Yeah, children's playroom.
For related companies. Yeah, one of the things that goes hand in hand with the mural business is you have to have a lot of space to make big canvases and big paintings. And we've always been into doing three-dimensional work. My training was as an industrial designer in the early years, but always wanting to be an artist, so I kind of infused the two together. And hence we are here. We do not just painting, but we do all kinds of custom work. This is the actual reception area, and you would have come in this way. And here is Ro. Ro is one of the original founding members as well. And he's also, this is Darley, he's a founding member too.
Yes.
Charlie, what do you think, these new designs?
Anything you need, any sample, finish, any kind of texture, we've done them all. From, faux bois for the Russian tea room to the, Wine Spectator restaurant in Hudson Yards, to just, what were those seashells for, Michael?
A restaurant and a casino in Florida, in Miami.
Oh, this was a fun project. We just finished that last.
Yeah, this is for quality,
Winter.
branded. We did all these panels. They were murals on wood. So
Quality Bistro.
Quality Bistro for quality brand.
Here's 2 models for 2 sculptures. This was for Canyon Ranch in Miami. Again, a rock sculpture, hanging all rocks suspended on cables. This was
For an Andes Walea hotel in Hawaii.
so here we're just our conference table, again covered now with samples. We're actually doing right now where we just fabricated an interactive globe for a client, and it's all in sort of pie sections along the latitude lines. It gets divided, and then there's points inside the globe that are touch sensitive, so the visitors can touch a spot on the Earth, and it connects to Google Earth on a large monitor behind the globe. The globe is about 6 feet in diameter, and it rotates, spins however you want on an axis. So here you can see the globe that we showed you a wedge of before inside the showroom. And it goes over here, and it's, the kids and adults can walk up to it and spin it and touch it. And then the different rubber tiles. Cool tiles that we just had custom made over in the EU. This was actually a zip line that the kids would zip across the room and then land into this ball pit. But the client has deleted the zip line. I think they're going to add it back. I could preface this by showing you one of the earlier huge lamps that we made. Shall we go over here for a second? I don't know if you can see it, or is the glare? This image here, this is at the Bobby Hotel in Nashville. And the designer wanted something with car parts, but it all had to be made lightweight. So everything you see here was done 3D rendered on computer, and then 3D cut on huge CNC machines. Some of these are designed here with our artisans, like these sconces. And if you go to Soho at the site store, you'll see a couple more sconces and a chandelier that goes with these pieces. The glass is all hand-blown in Latvia. This piece, we worked with an architect firm in New York that had a project with Disney. The concept here is the beveled edges so that this can be floated into a plaster drywall ceiling, and then you'll only see this part here. And it's very complex because there's all LEDs, and they're all placed in certain proximity to give the best uplight in different little portions. But this is my favorite one. And I designed this with my associate in Latvia, and it's intended to be a whole wall. This is just a sample of it. And these are all tiles that are cast, and we have magnets in the corners. And we created our own LED light. This is a LED, but it's embedded in a resin that transmits light. So we basically took a standard LED bulb and then put it in the resin that transmits light, so it becomes much brighter and bigger. And then with the tiles, the concept with this thing is that you can just do, people could do whatever they want with the layout. And here is a chandelier that's also designed by our partner in Latvia.
Shit, I don't have a face mask.
You don't? So you're burning the midnight oil, I guess, today.
That's true.
Good.
We are.
So this is Janis, and he is in Riga, Latvia, and he is the one that fabricates most of our new works that we're doing through the Baltics. Here's just sort of like a little gallery of some of our most recent projects. This is the headboard for the Westin Hotel. We did 500 pieces of that. Linda Evangelista posing. So this is in the Bahamas, in Nassau. We were there for about a month and a half painting these things. Yeah, this is one of our latest playrooms on 87th Street. This is the outdoor terrace of that playroom. So it's a whale that the kids can climb into and slide down. These beach balls all have fountains that are touch sensitive, so they sprinkle up as the kids approach them. This is for Alexander Wang in Soho. And this is another ancient technique. It's a blacksmith iron. It's a classical joint of metal that was used in the medieval times. It's been great having you. Come visit us. And next time you're in the South Bronx, you know where to go.
Thanks, Michael and Norville. That was great to see it's a really diverse range of work, and it's all super imaginative. And I really hope your client brings that zipline back. So next up, we're going back to Brooklyn to take a look at J. Mcdonald's studio.
I'm J. Mcdonald, and this is my studio. The space is relatively new to me. Before I had this space, all of my work happened in my shop, which we'll go to shortly. I've been in Red Hook for the past 6 years and in Brooklyn for about 12 years now. Before that, well, I grew up in the suburban Philadelphia, and I went to college studying architecture in Middlebury, Vermont. And then I came to New York City, and these different environments that I've spent time in and had all these, parts of my life in have really shaped the way that I think about myself, humans in general, and the way that we interact with our environment, the way that our environment shapes us. Another thing that's really shaped my ideas around humans and environment, which is really the thing to me that design is all about, are a lot of traveling in my 20s, including a year by myself, traveling overland from Beijing to Istanbul over the course of the better part of a year. And aside from the cultures, the architecture and environments, both the natural environments and the built environments, really influenced how I thought about design and the world, and how it affects our psychology and our way of being in the world. This was something furthered by my time in West Africa. When I came back to New York City after living in this very different way, in this very different world, I wanted to bring back some of that essential joy and that feeling of connection to the earth that I gained through making earth buildings there. And I found it really interesting that I couldn't think of a way to make earth buildings in New York City. And so I started making sculpture with that intent of bringing this contrast of this other world and this other time and this other part of my life into the contemporary part of my life, into the present. And that became the driving force of my work, bringing the natural and the urban together. So let me introduce you to my underground collection. So there are 4 pieces, part of this new collection of mine, and 3 out of the 4 of them have this element of metal and an element of a natural lime plaster that I've been experimenting with a lot. This is the underground table. It consists of this organic form that's treated with a lime plaster on the outside and then a polished lime plaster on the interior of the forms on these concavities that are covered with glass. And there's also this chromed steel element which harks back to kind of the quintessential modernist coffee table, chrome and glass. This is the cave mirror, which was the first piece in the series. And you can see, similar to the underground table, I'm interested in creating these forms and then slicing them with something like an architectural section cut and exposing what's inside of them. This is the internal chair. And this piece is wrapped in leather. My first leather piece, which reminds me of an internal organ, but also I think of the chair as a place to kind of be internal, to go into yourself a little bit and to think and sit. This is, again, the Tadalak polished lime plaster. It's the tentacle lamp or the tentacle table. It's both a lamp and a side table. I imagine it kind of next to a couch, and there's plenty of space on the table for your drink and your book. And yet eating into that space and eating into this kind of very simple, minimalist, clean design of this pedestal table, we have this organic form growing out of or eating away at this table. So I always start out with sketches, just trying to draw what's in my head. Been doing a lot of modeling in clay, making these small little mock-ups of things to help me, and then I work between model and sketch. And I've been also then taking the model and then using digital fabrication methods like CNC to then realize the full-scale work. A lot of these pieces are with lime-based plasters. And I'm gonna just show you a real quick example of how that works. I have, dozens of these containers of different colors, different mixes, clay heavy mixes, sand heavy mixes, all different things that I've been playing with. So I'm just kind of and I have all of these, little recipes for each one of them. So I make a substrate, and there are many ways, a few different methods I use to make the substrate. And it goes on quite thin, and usually I'm doing many layers, many thin layers on top of each other. And often I'll smooth it with a trowel at first to really get the adherence of the material and the bond between the plaster and the substrate. But with my forms, it's always difficult to get these lines, trowel marks, out of the plaster. So what I often do, I'll smooth it with my hand, and it gives it this kind of, it'll smooth everything out, make it a consistent coat. And I also just love this part of the process. I mean, this is what I fell in love with in West Africa, just like the feeling of wet earth on your hands. I mean, it's clay, it's this essential kind of human process and connection with material and with our world. So this work is about creating this imagined reality, this imagined future in which we're in touch with our evolutionary pasts. But you walk out the door and there's a present reality. So I'm going to take you out there and the half-block walk to my shop where the production of all these things happens. Welcome to my shop. This is Shape Studio. In addition to producing my own work, we also operate as a primarily metal shop, fabricating for other designers and artists. So this is our CNC machine. So I can cut anything, any shape that I can draw on. I use this for almost every piece that I make. This is Chris, who runs all the production. He's working right now on a creature table, which is a piece of mine from 2018, and making new additions and new finishes. The original one was green and black marbled, and we're doing a blue one. So all the products are made here in Red Hook, Brooklyn. They're available in custom finishes. We also work with on private commissions and commissions for pieces aside from the product line. Please go see my website, www.studiojmcdonald, just the letter J, .com, or my Instagram at jjjmcdonald to learn more, and please get in touch. Thanks so much for stopping by. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Jay. Spreading that lime plaster on the substrate does look really, really fun. And I love the idea of the tentacle lamp just kind of creeping up behind a couch. It's a pretty fantastic sort of presence. So from Red Hook, we're going to go to Philadelphia and Notena Studio and take a look at their process.
Hi, we're Kim and Justin with the Notena Studio, and we are here at Winterthur Museum in Delaware, where we had a residency, and it served as the inspiration for our latest collection. So we're going to take you on a tour and tell you a little bit about the work.
So we're a print and pattern studio, and we have a special focus on wallpaper and fabric, and we're artist-led. So when we start a collection, we are usually driven by some kind of artistic and conceptual interest. This year, our collection came from this time at Winterthur Museum and Gardens. So this is the room that really made us want to come to Winterthur. It's called the Chinese Parlor, and it just really connected with us about what wallpaper could be. We learned a lot of stories about how this wallpaper in the room was carried over and taken apart from France and installed, and wallpaper was something that it used to be taken with you when you would move, and we thought that story was really interesting because we think about wallpaper nowadays as something that's permanent and never moves, and taking it off is such a big project. So while the paper I'm showing you, called Dreamland, isn't specifically inspired by the wallpaper in this room, the way that we think about wallpaper and our understanding of wallpaper really changed when we saw this room and learned a little bit about its history. And this one is called Dreamland. The colorway is called Love, and it's based on some of the other things that you're seeing in our visit to Winterthur. So we spent a lot of time investigating all the different rooms in the house. This used to be the home of H.F. DuPont and his family, and now it's a museum based on his decorative arts collections, and there's just so many things to look at. So sketchbooking is a super important part of our process. We spent a lot of time drawing the things that we saw, seeing what they might translate into, and just exploring through drawing. Sometimes it's just the tiniest little mark that's suggestive or interesting. These flowers are the basis of the pressed flowers wallpaper that came out of this residency. So sketchbooking, like I said, was a huge part of the process for us, and it was a way to collect things that not only were interesting in the moment, but that we could reconsider as we came back to our studio to work through things. A lot of times we'll do special projects, or we'll do little one-off things like this series of handkerchiefs that we made. They were all inspired not only by the imagery, but also by the words that we found and the different lettering and calligraphy. These are early Pennsylvania German Fraktur kinds of pieces, and they made house blessings and marriage certificates and birth announcements, and they're all beautifully decorated and illustrated. Here's that Dreamland wallpaper, and maybe now you can see a little bit about the connection between some of the imagery that we have in this wallpaper and the early Pennsylvania German illustrations and illustrated documents. Winterthur is a really big house, and it's so easy to get lost in the many rooms that are just filled with artwork and furniture and textiles. And we were really lucky to work with so many talented curators and the museum staff, especially Catherine Dan Rober and Tom Geiler. They were particularly helpful in finding out what was interesting for us to explore. So this is one of the decorative tiles that came out of our time here at Winterthur, and I never would have thought I would be looking at some of the old unicorn paintings and prints. I realized that there's something really special and magical about unicorns that I really wanted to think about how to reimagine the idea of a unicorn, and what is it about making a polka dotted unicorn suddenly felt so much more special and unique, and something that I really wanted to explore. There were so many animals and flowers and pieces of nature in this kind of printmaking and painting. We couldn't help but collect so many of them as we moved through our time there. Even things that we weren't sure what to do with, they all go in the sketchbook, and hopefully they'll become the basis of future work. This is called a Wonderfish, another special thing from Pennsylvania German early Fraktur pieces. Here I wanted to show you our spiritual wonder clock. It actually comes from some Pennsylvania German house blessing, which was meant to be hung on the wall, and it had the hours of the day, the hours listed with numbers, and there was admonitions or spiritual meditations, religious words for the family to think about on the hour. And we've made a modern version, and our admonitions are more like idioms and turns of phrase that we think offer something to really think about. And all the images and drawings come from, some of them come from prints that we saw here, but they also come from some of this, the animals, the sculpture, the ceramics. These are chalkware pieces, and we drew a lot of these strange little animals, and some of them became the little animals in the wallpapers, in the posters like the Spiritual Wonder Clock. And we were really inspired by the idea of this conceptually, but also the figures, the symbols, and the icons that we found in some of the early American decorative items. One of the things that we learned from the curators and working with the team at Winterthur is that a lot of the colors that you see in the museum are aged, that in the time that they were made, the colors were much more vibrant and much more vivid than what we are used to seeing when we look at old things. And so it became really important to us to really think about what color should be like and would have been like in those times. And it allowed us to move beyond what we think of as sort of an old-fashioned or antique palette into these brighter and more vivid colors.
Yeah. Don't handle this.
So one of the things about working in the collections is that there's so much behind the scenes and so many things that aren't just in the rooms and the galleries, but that there's storage and drawers and behind the scenes displays like this ceramics and glassware. And we also found ourselves spending a lot of time looking at the surface design and the patterns on the ceramics. And it really inspired us to explore ceramics as a surface in our own work. And while the decorative tiles that you see here aren't necessarily drawn from the particular ceramics in this room, all of the different materials, all of the different decorative arts influenced the things that we made and allowed us to explore not only surface design, but materials and the different things that go into the patterns that you put in your house. Thank you so much for coming with us on this visit to Winterthur. We hope you like the collection, and we look forward to showing you the work in real life.
Thanks, Kim and Justin. That was fantastic. It seems like a really productive residency. I'm from Pennsylvania myself, so I'll geek out about Pennsylvania German folk art anytime you want. But I wanted to introduce the Q&A part of this with a discussion about process. You know, we saw a lot of different ways of designers moving into a new body of work, you know, whether it's starting with material or starting with sketching. And I wanted to ask, you know, each of you, you know, what that looks like, you know, from the inception of a new piece to how you get into its production. And I wanted to start with Kirk, because Kirk, you mentioned that drawing is a really integral part of what you do, and specifically hand drawing rather than doing anything computer-aided. And is that something you started out doing before you came to working with wood, or how did that process arrive for you?
Well, first I should say that it's a good thing we build nice furniture, because I'm not going to be a Hollywood actor anytime soon. Yeah, I mean, I think the process of drawing, I can, you know, when I draw on a computer, there's sort of a soulless act, and I'm just sort of sitting there. But when I'm drawing with pencil, you can, you know, there's something tactile about the adjustment of the pencil and how heavy, you know, how much weight you put to the pencil, and I often will move around. I'm not sort of sitting. So it's just a very, you know, I use the term analog in our video, but that's the best way for me to think of it.
And how do you think that comes through in some of the pieces that we saw? Like, I absolutely love that credenza. As far as, you know, working with a single piece of wood there, or the ultimate kind of like form and heft of a piece, how does that translate into those kind of early processes?
Yeah, you know, maybe it's an age thing as well. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of younger people that, you know, they can sit at a Mac and come up with something amazing. But for me, you know, I can almost I can see the difference. I can understand the scale when I'm drawing, and I just can't get that from when I'm sitting in front of CAD or something like that. And so there's a sort of an intuitive nature about scale and proportions that comes out of the pencil, and I just can't nail it with computer. And I think our clients, maybe it's not something that they pick up on right away, but it comes out. They understand it.
I want to ask the same question of Michael and Norville too, because, you know, you work with a huge range of clients on many very, very different projects in terms of both materials and form and what the brief is. You know, where do you start when someone comes to you and says, I need this kind of lighting element, or I need a zip line?
Quite often on a napkin. I'm also with Kirk on that thought. It's possibly a generational thing, but I am much more comfortable at a quick sketch. I used to joke about it with one of our other employees that it was my macho thing, that I would draw this thing out with a line in much less time than that someone would do it on a computer.
And when do you show that to a client? When in the process, have you worked it out to the point where you're ready for, feedback and what is hopefully a creative back and forth?
Well, we take it from really step one. We'll do some initial hand-drawn sketches and usually typically show them something in black and white and get their feedback and just go through different passes until it's a more fully realized work. I mean, we do, as time advances, start using computers more, but typically in most projects, it starts out with a hand rendering or some sort of more analog process before we take it to CNC or bring it into that system.
Has there ever been a moment where a client has totally stumped you on an idea? They've said, I need a wall that does this, and you're sitting there with a napkin and nothing's coming?
Yes, that can happen quite often, especially with the new technologies that are available. I mean, it's just, if someone throws something at me that I'm not familiar with, I'll try to bluff my way through it first, but then, it gets back to reality and you've got to show your stuff.
And when do the technologies come in? When do you start thinking about, I'm going to put this LED and resin that's going to change the character of the light and things like that? Do you have a sort of repertoire of things that you've developed over the years?
I think that's why it looks like, if you looked at our studio and our video, it's like we're all over the place. I think it might be part of the way we think. But I like to do a lot of different things. And I think there's just so much to draw from. I can't find one thing that keeps my interest.
That's a good transition. Kim and Justin, have you always worked with printmaking, or is this something? Do you have a drawing part of your process? And
I mean, sketchbooking is super important, I think, for both of us. And for us, it's often collaborative. So passing those drawings back and forth or showing each other what we're working on and getting feedback is a big part of how ideas developed.
Yeah, and we're super interested in objects and stories behind objects, and through the residencies, we did a residency at a junkyard, going through the different things and kind of piecing together stories, but a lot of it would start with photography as well, and taking just kind of shooting images and gathering stuff, and then which will kind of then turn into sketches and drawings, and coming up with our own imagined stories of what these are as we're kind of sketching them out and putting them together.
What's the most surprising thing you found at the junkyard?
Oh my God, so many things. I mean, the thing that was most amazing, I think, is that you could see from the bags of trash or the boxes, things were from a particular person. So the work that we did from that really came about with, we named each of the patterns after the person, their first name. Usually you'd find IDs and all kinds of detailed information, but the items that were belonged together, they told such strange stories or gave you such strange ideas about what this person might have been like. And it just became this really mysterious and curious just rabbit hole of humanity that was just so fun. Yeah, we've always worked on weird side projects together ever since we've known each other. We started off doing videos and doing Super 8 movies and stuff back in the day.
I was going to ask how you started collaborating, and how did you know that this was going to be a creative synthesis that worked well?
I think many times we thought it wasn't. I mean, we've also done things really differently and separately. And, it just seems like what happens is real life and art making just come together. And it's only in maybe the last 4 or 5 years that we've sort of oh, we should make this the main thing we do and not the side thing that we do.
Mm-hmm. What is the editing process like when you've gone from kind of a sketch and you're kind of determining which part of the sketch is going to scale up to a print?
Yeah, it's tough because then you have to assemble it into some sort of pattern, and also make a story as part of that. But then you're looking at repeat size and scale, and then we're introducing color. So it's a messy process trying to kind of weed through all of that, and I think like anyone, we'll work on it for a bit and then step away and come back to it, see if it's still kind of telling the story that we want to.
Mm-hmm. And Jay, do you start with a material, or do you start by sketching as well?
I start in, I think, many places at once, kind of, but I think most things start with a vision and a sketch. And kind of parallel to that, I have this material exploration and this fascination with different materials and material processes. And so certainly my sketching and what I'm able to imagine is informed by what I know of different materials. And so I've spent years gaining education in, what metal can do and how you can do it with that, what earth-based plasters can do and what you can do with those. I have some paper pieces that I spent time exploring. So there's certainly like a discovery of a material that you're like, oh, so this material works, and I love this texture, and I love this feel, and I love the kind of the underlying concept that this material brings to the piece, and kind of infuse that into the sketch and into my mind. So I think they work together.
And where did your interest in these kind of sinuous, organic forms come from?
I think it comes from antiquity, from like ancient human evolution. I think we all have a connection kind of to the earth, but a more direct answer to that question might be like just through travels and through time spent in places and studying traditional building styles and methods. So I lived in an earth house for a year. That had a big impact on kind of how I understand how space impacts our psychology. The contemporary living that we all are a part of is a lot of rectilinearity, a lot of white, a lot of hard lines. So to take yourself out of that and put yourself in this sinuous, organic, where you can kind of have the evidence of the hand in the space where you're living, it really has a different impact on your psyche. And you develop a different relationship with the space and with, I think, the earth and with yourself. So a lot of it comes from that.
Yeah, I think a lot of your work as kind of these characters almost, like I mentioned the tentacle lamp, almost feels like it could just be continuing to grow subtly in the back of a room, and that's something that I think the materiality really makes evident.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, part of I think it would be easier for me to make these pieces in foam and epoxy. I don't like to do that because you lose the tactility, you lose the soul or this, and I want the pieces to be animated. I want them to be alive. And there's also this part of the process of, when I said, I just love smearing wet dirt on things. I mean, that's really true, and it's really like, I want that to show through in the piece as much as I want to like experience that feeling of that I get in creating the piece. I think it also shines through in the kind of like tactility and the essence of the piece.
I mean, it feels very similar to what Kirk was saying about working with single pieces of wood for a lot of his pieces. Kirk, could you dig into the Credenza piece in particular? Was really cool to see in your video.
Yeah, I mean, it's we've all there's a million Credenzas and sideboards and that type of thing on the market, and so I think the Credenza, what's interesting about it, it's sort of an everyday piece. But one thing that we've noticed recently with the with the pandemic is the fastest growing demographic for us is probably younger people that are looking for meaningful pieces for their home. Right? So maybe they instead of buying a bunch of different stuff, they're looking for one single piece that they'll keep for generations or pass down to their kids. And so traditionally, those types of things are made from MDF or even veneered plywood. That would be considered a luxury. So this idea to build what was traditionally just a carcass, but to actually to make it out of one single piece of wood I think, well, it's unique, it's difficult, and it's probably not the most profitable way to go about it. But certainly when like I watch customers and they'll just with their showroom models and you can see them open it and there's a sort of surprise to them, even if they don't have good wood knowledge. There's something strangely unfamiliar about, oh, this is solid. This has a different feel to it. I mean, even the surface of the carcass, I call it the carcass, you know, the outside of it, will leave little things open, like little cracks and voids, and so that you know that it's organic and that it's from actual wood.
And you mentioned the table at the end of your video too, that you made kind of in response to the pandemic. And I was wondering, you know, could you say a little bit more about that, and how has the fact that, you know, the whole year in design has been disrupted, how has that affected your practice?
Yeah, when March 15th hit, it was kind of like we didn't know what was coming, and our main goal was we really wanted to keep our guys employed, and so of course I'm a big mid-century modern fan, and have always studied the Case House study program back in the 50s. And so the idea was sort of minimalist, like what can we make using very minimal materials. All of the fasteners and brackets in the table are made in-house, and you know, could we negotiate with our suppliers so we could buy a large quantity of material and offer two types of finishes, and with the sole goal of offering people that were, you know, Bill, as you said, like there's a lot of people at home, so can we provide those people something that's really beautiful, really well made, you know, check, you know, reasonably priced, and looks, you know, beautiful. It's one of our nicest pieces I think we've ever come up with in the dining table sector. So it's sort of it's done that, and it's kept our guys employed, and so yeah, mission so far accomplished with that.
It's a really great response to kind of changing needs and changing ways people are using their homes. I mean, how about here at Industry Study? I mean, how has the pandemic affected, you know, the way that you're working, and what your clients have been asking for?
We've actually kind of shifted our focus into a lot of outdoor pieces, and we're actually developing some outdoor playstations that children can use. People are spending a lot more times in their own yards and not out in the communal playgrounds. So we really feel that there's a big drive towards getting outside and staying outside, and of course the sustainability of it all is very important to us.
What sort of features, you know, do you see going into these outdoor spaces, and you know, where does the sustainability component come in?
Well, for us right now, we're working with this peat moss, which is a natural ingredient from peat bogs, and apparently there's areas of it that are compressed by the Earth's the gravity that have been sitting there for 1,000 years, and when it's excavated, it's actually like wood, and we're milling it and sawing it and using that as elements to build these environments. That's very cool. Where are you sourcing it? It's in Latvia. In Latvia. Yeah, I'm actually Latvian by heritage, and that's why all this happened.
Yeah, I was wondering about the connection. I mean, have you always been kind of based between New York and, you know, some fabrication over there?
Not so much. In the last 7 to 10 years, it's been more and more, and now I'd say that half of our work is being fabricated over there because of the availability of quality craftsmen, and not that there's a shortage here, but I just fell into a great niche of craftsmen there it's amazing, and the elements and materials available there. It's a very green country, so.
And discovering new materials along the way too.
Yeah,
that's very cool. I'm curious to see what the finished pieces look like.
You will in 2021.
In 2021. How about you, Jay? Have you had to sort of change around the way that you're working?
Well, for my design practice, it's actually been quite productive time. talked in the video shortly about Shape Studio, which is design fabrication, but more custom metal fabrication. And as that slowed down during the pandemic, I kind of found myself in my studio by myself with these kind of like creatures that I was creating. And they were, you know, kind of my pandemic company in some way. So it's been good for me. I've had time and energy to focus towards these pieces and towards my kind of more out there imagined things as kind of like the day-to-day hustle and bustle of everything kind of slid underneath. And I think in terms of actual design, I think my work's always been about humans and nature, and that's kind of like what the pandemic is about as well. But I've also had in the past this element of isolation, where like I wanted to create these places and these spaces and objects that we could kind of like retreat away from the hubbub of everyday life and these kind of meditative spaces. And I think now I want to like create company and intimacy more than solitude.
You had enough on your trip from Beijing to Istanbul of isolation and creating more company. I think you speak for a lot of people. How about with Notena? Is everyone looking for new wallpaper now?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for sure people are thinking about, you know, white walls and looking at white walls.
Spending a lot of time at home just
and be a little lonely.
Staring at the same wall all day long. They're kind of realizing, you know, they want something. But I think it's, you know, it's definitely been interesting, and you know, I don't think the work itself has changed too much, but you know, how we're talking about it. You know, we miss the shows. You know, being able to talk to people and hear that, you know, we always get people coming up telling their stories, and which is always fun. And but you know, it's opened up new opportunities for, you know, events like this where we can kind of try out new ways of approaching things. And we've done the you know, same with our work. You know, by some of the research we did at Winter Tour about looking into how like some of the original you know, sales people in the 1700s would go around and display their wallpapers to these kind of interesting devices where they would like scroll the backgrounds in, and you know, it seems antiquated now, but I guess it was like the equivalent of the iPad trade shows now. But so we're you know, working on fun things like that too, and ways to kind of put our work out there and engage with people more.
And sort of forging new ways to get to highlight work. Is there a particular type of pattern, color, tile that you see people gravitating toward this year that is maybe a new direction?
I mean, I think for us, some of the things that we're seeing, you know, that pressed flowers wallpaper we've shown is just been super popular, more than we expected. And it reminds me of the one that I had growing up. So I think there's this sort of feeling of nostalgia and this looking for warmth and intimacy. A few people have talked about today that like human connection is something we're all looking for. And so things that represent nature or colors that feel warm and inviting are things that people are missing when you have to be home in those rectilinear spaces all day.
Yeah, I think we're all eager for that to some degree. And Kirk, is there something else coming along from your studio along the lines of the table that is kind of responding to this? Or where do you see, the need and desire being next?
As they say, there's more designs than time. So there's just so much that we want to do. But I this might sound a bit cliche, but I'm really big on material optimization. So our big focus is I always enjoy finding new materials like all of our peers. But I enjoy looking for the next big sustainable material to use, maybe something that hasn't traditionally been used in furniture. Mm-hmm. And then we take a lot of pride in how can we optimize that with as little waste as possible.
I think that's something that a lot of people share, with some of this material work as well. Well, so we do have much more design than time. We need to wrap up now, but I want to thank everyone for joining for this conversation. It's been really cool to talk about what the studios have been up to see a little bit of the work and the process, and to chat about what comes next. Big thanks again to Wanted and to ICFF for hosting CLOSEUP, and also to EQ3 for supporting these talks. We'll be back after a 10-minute break for the second half of the North American Design Studio sessions. But in the meantime, check out a video from Dwell. I think that's coming up.
Hi, I'm Anton, and this is my wife, Marty. We live here in Hermosa Beach, and we're the homeowners. I guess there's a lot of connection to the walk street, because a lot of the neighbours have kids and they're in and out of each other's homes, so it's a very kind of community vibe here. Must-haves for the house were a concrete floor, as much glass as we could get into the house as possible, wooden ceilings, which gives the house warmth, and as much outdoor space as possible connected to the house.
Having the car lift has given us a lot more space downstairs because all our living area is down here.
We really love the kitchen area and the whole open plan concept, because we can be here cooking, everyone's around the island here, and then our kids are in and out on the walk street. We can see everyone out there, and music's on, the doors are wide open, you get the sea breeze coming through. It's a really nice space to entertain in and just enjoy your family and friends.
So the large sliding glass wall, it starts here in the back of me in the living room, and it retracts through the dining area and into a wall in the den. It's a 26-foot long door made up of 6 panels, 10 feet tall, and you can operate it manually or with the switch of a button. So we're on the intermediate deck off the second level. It serves as kind of the landing spot before you go upstairs to the roof terrace. You can socialize with the people on the front patio below, or just kind of hang out here and have a little bit more of an intimate spot to yourself.
My favorite space in the house is the Switchback Stair that I'm sitting on behind me, because it's kind of the center core of the house. It has the piano, which is so important to the clients. They play piano throughout the day and night, and it just rings up through the first floor and second floor.
This is our bedroom. Super cozy with our sheepskin rugs, Nelson lampshades. As you can see, we have a partition wall here, which provides incoming light. We have floor-to-ceiling closets. It's very open in here. We can walk straight into the bathroom. There's no connecting door, it just flows through.
The nice thing about the bedroom is how light and airy it is, and we don't have blackout blinds. You wake up, the light's flowing through, and you see the ocean. It starts your day the right way.